Welcome to today's Coach's Corner. I'm Mike Van Hoozer, and today we want to follow up on this concept of a moment. And we talked about it in a Monday Morning Moment recently and talked about this acronym of CAR. And we'll talk more about that today. We'll put a link to that video so you can check that out as well. It's a short clip that'll kind of get you grounded in the definition of a moment and this acronym that can help you. But I wanted to expound upon that in today's Coach's Corner. And the key question is, how do you define a moment and how long does a moment last? The word moment is interesting because it's derived from the word momentum, and it's right in the center of that word momentum. And the definition of momentum is movement or moving power. And we all want momentum in our lives. Again, as we talked about it in earlier videos, the key is in relationships or as we're pursuing our goals or in a race or in our career, we want momentum. We want it to have an upward trajectory and something that we're building towards and building a force behind that. But it's comprised of the word moment, and momentum is built upon moments. And it's really key in how we use those moments in our lives. And I wrote a book on moments, talked all about different kinds of moments that we have. And the key subtitle of that was making your life count for what matters most. And when we think about moments, when we think about our life, we have to make sure that we're fully engaged in those moments, and being present is the key, for each of those things. So I'm going to talk today about six kind of principles that we talked about regarding how you make the most of the moments in your life. But before we get to that, in looking at the word moment, as you look up synonyms for that, and as I've asked many people about what their definition of a moment is, I get a lot of kinds of answers and a wide variety of answers. It can be everything from a split second to a minute to a day to a year to a season of life. It could be your whole life. It could be, a period of time, maybe a couple of 100 years. And there's a big difference between a split second moment and, say, an era or a millennium. And the key is those choices and attitude and response. That's that CAR acronym that we talked about. The choices that you make about what you think about, the attitude that you have, and the responses that you make in that split second moment can impact bigger periods of time. And we have to be concerned about and focused on making the right choices in those split second moments to make an impact on those bigger periods of time. I work with athletes all the time, and we talk about different moments in sports. There's certain sports like golf and tennis where there's kind of defined stops and starts of play. In basketball, it's more fluid, or in football, again, you have different types of plays and different things that are going on. Basketball and soccer, a lot more things going on, but you still have moments of decisions and choices that you have to make. And the key is to think about what we're feeding our mind, what we're nurturing in our heart, and then how that's resulting in how, what our actions are and what our responses are to certain circumstances, whether they be good or whether they be bad. And so we have to think about, those types of moments and make sure that we're focused. Michael Johnson was in the Olympics, and he went to Baylor. I went to Baylor, and it was interesting to watch his career because he spent 10 years of his life focusing on 1.5 seconds. And that was the difference between being just a good track athlete in Dallas and being an excellent and gold medalist and world record holder in the Olympics. And he was his craft, and he had mastered the craft of running the 200 and the 400, which were very different races. And yet he was a world record holder in both. He was a gold medalist in both as well. And he was coming into the Atlanta Olympics, and he had these Nike gold shoes. Again, it was a great thought about winning the gold medal and focusing on doing that. And he won his race, and you would have thought it was the perfect race. And he had shattered a world record that he had set just about 3 months prior to that, and had shattered it by 0.3 seconds approximately in the 200. And you would have thought, well, that was the perfect race. But as he thought about it, there was a brief stumble, the third step out of the block. And it's interesting about that. It wasn't the perfect race. You and I would have watched it and thought it was the perfect race. But there was a moment where he had to make a decision. Again, it was a split-second moment because he could have stopped and said, can we start again? Because I stumbled out of the block and I'm wearing the goal shoes and I wanted this to be the perfect race. But he didn't. He kept moving and he accelerated through that moment. He pushed through it. And because of that, he set a world record and created a great moment in time and a moment in history for himself. And life is like that. It may not come down to the Olympics and kind of a split second that you think doesn't really make a difference, but it may be choices and decisions as a leader, as a parent, as a spouse, whatever you are, whatever role you play. There are moments in our lives where we have to focus on making the right choices and making the right decisions as well. And moments are important. Moments comprise everything. They comprise how we feel, our choices, our thought process, the relationships that we have. You can think back to moments that you've had and probably say, remember the time that we did this, or that was, a great moment when we did this. And we don't necessarily remember the specific time. No one says, remember 30 years ago at 2:06 p.m., we were able to do this. They remember more the essence of the moment, what was going on, what they thought about, how they felt. And we've had a lot of moments, even in the last year and a half, a lot of them have been challenging circumstances. And they've, led us to points of stress and anxiety and focusing on, those kinds of things. But a lot of people have really thought about, well, what's most important? Is everything stripped away? How can I focus on fulfilling my calling and fulfilling my purpose and focusing on that? And the last year and a half has been a great opportunity for me and our family to do that. And I've really tried to, double down on purpose and, what that is for me and our focus. And I encourage you to do the same. I think it's important at this moment in time, wherever and whatever stage of life you are, no matter how old you are, and no matter what's going on as far as the circumstances or the challenging situations that you might find yourself in, is to focus on this moment right now and how can I be present and how can I implement some principles that will help me make the most of the moments in my life. So with all of that said, I want to focus on these 6 principles, and these are ones that I shared, again, in my book, Moments, Making Your Life Count for What Matters Most. And we'll put a link in the description for that as well. But I just want to go through these briefly and talk a little bit about how we can apply them as well. So the first one is focusing on the moment. And the key about that is that prepositions are really key. My mom was an English teacher, and so words and definitions of words were very important. And we all want to have focus in the moment. When Michael Johnson was coming to that big Olympic moment, he didn't just arrive at the starting blocks and say, hey, this is a big moment. I need to be focused. He said, he had prepared for that moment and he had focused on the moment. And he had been preparing all his life, really, but especially the last 4 years and leading up to that, and using certain kind of goal races and races that were leading up to this ultimate goal race to focus on the moment and what was the most important. And so he didn't just get there and say he needed to be focused. He had prepared for that moment. And so in doing that and how we apply that for ourselves, we have to realize the why of this moment. And so it could be, a certain point in your career. Maybe you've gotten promoted to a leadership position and focusing on, well, why is this moment important? Who else is involved in this moment? And what's the most important thing I can do in this moment to impact other people? And I think those 3 questions can help you focus on the moment in order to have focus in the moment. But thinking about the why, thinking about the purpose of the moment, and thinking about what's the most important thing I can do in this moment is really important in focusing on the moment. Enjoying the moment is the second principle that we shared in the book and that we teach a lot of the people that we coach. So we want to not just go through the process or go through the motions. We want to enjoy the moment. And part of that's being grateful. It's having gratitude about what you're thankful for and the talents, gifts, and strengths that you have, the opportunities that are there. And research has shown, and you can, whether it's Googling that research or research we've done and working with people, that being grateful and showing gratitude is really important. And when we enjoy the moment, when we enjoy how we've been blessed in certain situations and the opportunities that we have, we're going to enjoy the moment and we're going to bring our full self to that moment based on enjoying the opportunity that we've been given. And that leads to the third principle. It's engaging in the moment. It's being present. And we have to make sure that we're present in those moments and bring our full self, not only physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually as well. And when we're fully engaged in moments and we bring our full self to those moments, then we're going to be our best in those moments. We're going to perform well, but we're also going to make the most meaningful impact to those around us in those moments as well. So we have to make sure that we're engaged, that we're fully present, and we're not thinking about the past or having regrets about the past or having fear of the future. I love a quote by Fulton Alsler that basically says that we a lot of times crucify ourselves between two thieves: regret for the past and fear of the future. And those two thieves, they are thieves, and they steal our joy because they keep us from being fully present in this current moment. So I want to encourage you in whatever you're doing to make sure that you engage in the moments that you have, and today and every day that you're fully present and bring your best self to that. Having said that and worked on these principles, the next principle is performing in the moment. So it's doing it. It's trusting your talent and skills. It's making sure that you bring everything to that moment and you bring your best to it. And action is a part of that. We can't just sit back and think, well, I believe I can perform well, or I think I can do this. It gets back to an I will mindset. And we've talked about that on this channel as well, as far as having an I will mindset. It's not I can do that and just believing or planning for it. It's trusting that you can and then performing and doing it. Another principle beyond that is responding in the moment. And so that's going to be key. You're going to have challenging circumstances. Just look at the last year. You're going to have things that get in the way of you performing well. You're going to have circumstances that don't go your way. You're going to perform, and you're going to, there's going to be creative tension around that because not everything's going to be a successful outcome. And with the athletes that we work with, a lot of times it's injuries they didn't expect, or games they didn't win, and they have to be able to respond to that. They have to be able to have resiliency and grit and make sure they make adjustments to being their best. But responding in the moment is key. And when those challenging circumstances come, when unforeseen circumstances happen, make sure that we rise up and make adjustments in our lives and then respond to that moment. And people are counting on you, in any role of leadership that you play. And again, leadership's about influence. So the influence that you have, people are looking towards you for influence and for guidance, direction, even when you don't think they are. And so your response is going to have an impact longer term on them and that moment. And so not only for yourself, but the people that you lead and influence, responding in the moment when challenging circumstances happen is really important. And then the last principle that we included is very important and near and dear to my heart, and it's foundational to my faith and foundational to me and our family, and it's praying in the moment. It's having those moments where we start the day, meditating on the right words, and I read the Bible and I pray and I focus on that day and making sure I get out of the way so that I can focus on the things that I feel like God has called me to do, and making sure that I'm grounded and centered in the right things and not just starting in a rush of things. And I think when I'm doing that, I'm living out those moments from a place of acceptance and not for acceptance. And I think that's really key, and that's in all of these things as far as making the most of the moments in your life. When you're working from a place of acceptance, in other words, that you've been created with gifts, talents, and opportunities, and you're not living for acceptance, reading the social media feed, reading things, about what other people are doing, reading, other people's lives and thinking their lives are perfect and yours is not. But and trying to gain that acceptance, when you're living from a place of acceptance, then you're going out in confidence because you're able to bring your best self to that moment and appreciate who you are, why you've been created, and the opportunities that you have to make the most of your life. So again, these are just some quick things today to get you to focus on making the most of the moments in your life. And it goes back to that acronym that we all have a choice in. We have a choice about what we think about. We have a choice about the attitude that we're nurturing in our heart. And we have a choice about the responses that we have when those things don't go right, or when we plan around things and then need to step out and trust and faith to make the most of the moments in our lives. So I want to encourage you to do that today. It'll build momentum in your life. And again, just keep checking out our channel because we're going to continue to post things on Monday and Thursday to help you go further, faster in your areas of leadership and peak performance in sports, business, and life. And that's what this content is all about. So again, if you've liked today's content, hit the like button. Please subscribe to our channel so you never miss a moment. And also, I'd love to know your feedback about goals that you're pursuing, or leave a comment about maybe some things that have helped you today in this session, but also just things that you've used to be more fully present in the moments in your life. Make it a great week and make the most of the moments in your life.